Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick back on FFG's webpage because Bullseye, the preview article for the M12L KIMOGILA Expansion Pack for X-wing has just dropped, and I heard you guys like reveal articles, so let's take a look at this one. First of all, just scrolling down the page, we have this message reprinted again, which is everything from Wave 12 and 13 is going to be released together. Now, it still doesn't have a release date for this kind of stuff, or even like a rough sort of, third quarter or fourth quarter 2017, first quarter 2018 kind of deal. But based on what we're seeing here, this is a full fortnight out from the last reveal article we got, which means if it keeps going on schedule like this, the reveal articles will stop about halfway through December, and that means we'll probably get the release early January, which disappoints me. I'm really hoping this is just an anomaly. Maybe the gunboat article came out a bit earlier and they'll tighten up the schedule, get everything out sort of early December, get everything out mid-December. I'm really hoping we see these ships before The Last Jedi drops. But it's just something to be aware of. At this stage, we're sort of looking early January if everything's going to schedule as we're seeing it now. Again, it's FFG, so we never really know for sure. One more thing I want to point out. This article, I'll just scroll down to the spread of the KIMOGILA fighter, does not include everything in the pack. I'm a bit disappointed to see that. With the assault gunboat, we had every single element within the pack revealed. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a new trend for FFG. They're going to start showing us everything. And, sorry, I've forgotten your name, but one of you guys pointed out that, hey, that might just be their way of saying sorry for taking so long for giving us news, and that's actually a good point. It also might be another way of saying sorry to the Imperial players because they've been really screwed by the meta recently. So they're showing them everything they get to play with soon so they can test it out, get that out in the public sooner. Whereas scum players don't get everything revealed, which is fine, honestly. This is pretty much what we've come to expect from these articles. I will say, though, that this article leaves out a lot of elements, which does annoy me a little bit. We do not see the dial on this ship, which, in my opinion, was the most important thing to reveal here in this article. We do not see this generic pilot here. And we do not see this missile, scrambling missile, whatever it is, or R5TK. So there's a lot of elements still not seen that we're going to see probably a week out before the wave reveals like we usually see. That's a bit disappointing, but kind of understandable given the circumstances. So let's move our way through the spread and take a look at what we can see. First of all, let's just talk about that dial quickly. This ship relies on what's called the Bullseye firing arc, which is these dotted lines here. And there is a bonus that your ship gets if you catch your enemy inside that Bullseye firing arc. And that relates to all the different pilot cards and upgrade cards, which we'll see soon. And this is the main reason that I really wanted to see this dial, because this dial shows how maneuverable the ship is. We know the highest pilot skill is 8, second highest is 7. So both of those are going to be up there in terms of pilot skill and able to fly last, use that barrel roll to great effect, and catch your enemies inside the Bullseye firing arc. We do know, however, that there are no Segner's loops or Talon rolls in this dial because those rules cards are not included in the spread. Given, though, that there's a 4K on the dial here, we know that it is at least not terrible. And it's also worth knowing that the upgrades bar has the salvaged astromech, which means you can take the unhinged astromech, improve the dial. To what extent, I don't know. We can't see the dial yet, which is a bit frustrating again. But anyway, let's move on. Let's go through everything we see here in the spread and talk about them one by one. First of all, we'll start off with the base pilot. The buy-in cost of the frame, the Cartel Brute. It's a 22-point pilot skill 3 without an EPT. Right, let's go through the stats of the ship. We have 3 red dice, 1 green dice, 6 hull and 2 shields. The action bar contains focus, target lock, barrel roll, and reload, a new action which allows you to flip face up your face down ordnance cards in exchange for a weapons disable token. Very cool. The upgrade bar contains a torpedo, a missile, a salvaged astromech, and an illicit, and this frame costs 22 points. So what's interesting is it has the reload action, and this to me is very typical of the sort of the comparisons we see between the factions. The assault gunboat also has the reload action. However, given the titles that the assault gunboat can take, given the pilots, it's punished far less for having weapons disable tokens. Sure, this has missiles, but it also has 3 red dice and a bullseye firing arc, which gives you shenanigans involved with that. Basically, this is what it comes down to. Imperial in general has fewer upgrade slots, but far more efficient at using them, while Scum has more upgrade slots and relies on different combinations. This is pretty much what we see across all the ships amongst the whole game. It's similar to the Vaxi title versus the Royal Guard title for the TIE Interceptor, for example. A lot of people look at these and go, well, the Vaxi is just better. I don't fully agree. The fact of the matter is the TIE Interceptor already has boost and barrel roll. It already has 3 green dice, so it has access to things like auto thrusters and stealth device, and it can use those upgrades very efficiently, where the Vaxi has a lot more flavor, has a lot more customizability, but is far less efficient with the upgrades it can take. And again, in this coming wave, we're seeing that with the reload action. Ultimately, I don't see a lot of value with this reload action. One of the pilots I think is going to use it fantastically, but all in all, using ordnance with this doesn't feel strong. I feel like we're going to have to use that high pilot skill with something like Veteran Instincts. We're going to use that barrel roll quite often to make sure that we get that bullseye firing arc shot. And we're not necessarily going to want to take actions to get the target lock. It has no crew slot, so we can't take K4 Security Droid, for example, and get free target locks. Thankfully, one of the pilots does get free target locks, so that might be an option going down the track. But right now, looking at the bullseye firing arc and looking at the ordnance, I don't think it's a very clean fit. And again, this is very typical of stuff we see with Scum. Ultimately, it means probably one of these kind of archetypes is going to prevail. It might mean that both prevail. I don't think that'll be the case. Looking at the ship overall, it doesn't look too pushed or too broken anyway. It just looks like a really good solid ship. And I have to say, I feel very much that the bullseye firing arc as an archetype is going to be at least my preferred way of building this ship. It's new, it's exciting, it's very much down to the core of what we like about X-wing. It's just about getting ships in your arc and shooting. Very basic, very fun, and I dig that. Anyway, I've been rambling long enough. Let's keep going through these pilots. The next generic pilot we do not have revealed, so let's go on to the named pilots. First up, we have Dalen Oberos, a pilot that was actually in Guns for Hire on the Star Viper, which means you cannot take this Dalen Oberos and that Dalen Oberos, oddly enough. Usually when the same pilot exists on 2 different ships, he has the same pilot ability, or say a pilot exists on a crew card and a ship, they combo very powerfully in a way that it's a good thing the unique rule exists, so you can't combo those together. But this Dalen Oberos and the Dalen Oberos and the Star Viper, just in my eyes, just don't match up at all. The Dalen Oberos and the Star Viper is all about positioning and getting the perfect shot. This guy is all about using target locks and probably ordnance. Even got a different pilot school. He's gotten slightly better at flying since he got out of a Star Viper, clearly. Anyway, he has pilot skill 7, costs 25 points, has the APT included. At the start of the combat phase, you may acquire a target lock on an enemy ship inside your bullseye firing arc at range 1 to 3. And this is really cool. I think this is the guy that's going to make ordnance possible on the KIMOGILA fighter. Basically, it's a choice here because we have the torpedo and the missile and the reload action. Again, more options but less efficiency. The torpedo slot means you can take extra munitions, but you might not want to if you have that reload action. So it's pretty much a case, I think, of taking the torpedo or missile that you're most keen on. I don't think there's going to be too many situations where you want to use both, but that is something to think about. I'm thinking right off the bat that Veteran Instincts and Salvaged Astromech is going to be a great couple of options for this guy. Again, we don't know what the dial looks like, so I can't guarantee that Salvaged Astromech will be good. Maybe there's lots of 3-speed greens anyway, but ultimately, anything that gets you up to pilot skill 9 makes your dial better, means you're going to make better use of those barrel rolls and get those bullseye firing arc shots working better for you. And it just means you can take ordnance and not have to worry about taking target locks. If you can make that pilot ability work so efficiently that you can just rely on it to get your target locks, you can get those ordnance shots turn after turn after turn. What's cool is this ability also works through other actions like reload. So say the turn after you fire a piece of ordnance, you could get an enemy ship inside your bullseye firing arc, reload, you get your target lock. You can't shoot them, but at least you get efficiency. And the next turn you could say do a K turn, fire at them with that ordnance, and just have a great old time. This is going to be interesting. I don't know if the ordnance archetype is going to be fantastic. Again, I really feel like just going for that pure bullseye firing arc. I'm rarely a fan of secondary weapons when the ship already has 3 red dice. It feels a bit wasteful to me, but I might be wrong. Ordnance is always something to look at, and considering this guy has the reload action, I think it's something that at least we are going to have to look at in the future. Alright, let's move on to the next unique pilot. In Tirani Kuldar, pilot skill 8 has an EPT slot and costs 27 points. After you perform an attack, each enemy ship inside your bullseye firing arc at range 1 to 3 must choose to suffer 1 damage or remove all of its focus and evade tokens. Now, one of you guys here on the channel, and I forget who it is, asked me, hey, does this mean that if they have no focus or evade, they must suffer 1 damage? And I don't think that's the case based on how this is worded. I think we're probably going to see an FAQ on this, but basically, when it says all, that could mean 0. If they have no focus or evade tokens, they could probably just say, okay, well, I just discard all my tokens, they're done. It means that there are ships that this is just not going to have much firepower against, but it means that there are ships it's going to have a lot of potency against, especially things like Sunterfell, the Inquisitor, any Imperial Ace that takes a lot of tokens. It is also worth noting that those ships are going to be particularly difficult to keep inside your bullseye firing arc because of how maneuverable they are. But that's the trade-off. It's a really powerful ability, and the high-risk, high-reward factor could be a lot of fun there. Again, I think it's a no-brainer. Veteran Instincts and Salvage Astromech on this guy is going to be so powerful. Getting this guy up to Pilot Skill 10, flying after the Pilot Skill 9 aces, or even the Pilot Skill 8 aces, is going to be very potent. It means you're going to have a lot of leverage over those ships. It's going to hurt you when you fly against low pilot skill generics or big ships, but in any case, I just think this ability is going to be so cool. It's going to be a very strong anti-ace. And just looking at the way this guy fights, I don't think Ordnance is the way to go with this guy. I think just good, solid upgrades that really capitalize on that 3 red dice, just keep that offense going. I'm not a real huge fan of that 1 green dice. I feel like that's probably what's holding this ship back the most. But given its shenanigans, I look at this and think, yeah, that's probably the payoff for having such a cool bullseye firing arc ability. That's probably fair enough. At 27 points, you can easily get it into the low 30s with a semi-competitive build, and that could be quite interesting. I'm very excited to see what Tyrannicola can do moving into the meta. Okay, so moving back through the spread. As I said before, we're missing a lot of these upgrade cards, but the first thing we see here is Saturation Salvo. If you guys want to see what that is, go back to my Assault Gunboat video. I already explained that one in there. That's the Plasma Torpedoes. It came in the K-Wing Expansion Pack and the Punishing one. Scrambling Missiles, again, something we didn't see. R5TK. These are the cards that we haven't got revealed yet, so we will see them when the pack releases. Moving down, we have Contraband Cybernetics, and this is something we actually did have revealed. Let's bring that up right now. Okay, Contraband Cybernetics, an illicit upgrade that cost 1 point. When you become the active ship during the activation phase, you may discard this card and receive 1 stress token. If you do until the end of the round, you may perform actions and raid maneuvers even while you are stressed. I thought this was pretty average looking at it at first glance, but I gotta say, the more I think about it, the more I think this could be a very powerful card. It's an illicit upgrade, so it could go on Sabine's TIE Fighter, it could go on the YT 1300 or the 2400, and I think this might have potential on Dash Rendar. Maybe, I'm not sure. A push to the limits dash with a smuggling compartment and Contraband Cybernetics could be an interesting concept. But ultimately, I think the real strength of this card is not the getting your extra actions per turn when you do a red maneuver. I don't think that's really worth burning an illicit upgrade and getting a stress token. Where I think the power of this card is going to lie is the fact that your ship could be stressed. And so long as this card is on that ship, there's the risk that you might do a red maneuver, with actions no less. So, say for example, you have your Lancercraft Pursuit Craft with a Sarge Ventress, very powerful pilot, very powerful build, and you have this in a Glitterstim, and the ship's stressed because you use push the limits or whatever, doesn't matter, and your opponent now looks at the ship, goes, okay, that might do a 3 hard and clear the stress, or it might pop this card, do a 5k, get right behind their ship, completely mess up their strategy, pop Glitterstim, get 2 actions from push the limits. Sure, they'll be drowning under a mountain of stress, but if it's like a last-ditch effort by that ship to try and get some shenanigans out at the last moment, it could be so potent. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at my Sarge Ventress build in particular, thinking, yeah, I might take out a second Glitterstim and put this in instead, because the kind of things you could do with this is just disgusting. Now, I will say it is very scum in the way it works. It's you've got to take another stress token. You've got to lose this illicit slot. So if you stuff it up, it's a massive cost, and you've got to be so careful of that. And just looking at the picture here, there's a Kirax fighter in the background, and that immediately makes me think, ooh, does this belong on the Kirax fighter? My gut instinct says no, but however, with the Vaxi title, this is free. And I don't think there's a lot of really good options for that slot. I quite like Glitterstim on the Vaxi, but this could be cool as well. You could put it across a field of 4 Vaxi and then just do something really disgusting. You could pull out these K-turns at the best moment and just really hamper your opponent at the worst possible moment. So it's something I'm going to have a play around with. This ship does come with 2 of them, so if you were to say buy 2 of these packets, you could get 4 copies for 4 Vaxi. So that is something to consider. It's something I will definitely consider. The card looks like it could be terrible, but it could have great potential as well. So I'm going to be very keen to have a play around with this and see how it goes. All right, just jumping back to the spread, we have a copy of Dead Man's Switch that originally came in the Most Wanted pack. The last thing we have here is the Enforcer, and we actually got a proper high-res picture of that as well. And here is that card. The Enforcer, it's a title for the M12L KIMOGILA fighter only. Cost 1 point. After defending, if the attacker is inside your bullseye firing arc, it receives 1 stress token. Cool. Alright, so that's very interesting. Again, this is very good against aces. I like that we have a defensive move against things inside your bullseye firing arc. It means that on offense and defense, there is a great reason to get things inside your bullseye firing arc. It's worth noting as well, I didn't mention before, but the bullseye firing arc does give you the bonus of just saying, okay, when I'm attacking you and you're inside my bullseye firing arc, you can't use focus or evade tokens. So right off the bat, you don't need any card equipped to these ships. They already get that bonus. And with this bonus, you could just put this on even the lowliest of pilot skill guys, and they have arguably a decent offensive and defensive kind of zoning bonus. Sure, being a pilot skill 3 means they're not going to catch things in that arc too often, but having it in the back, having the risk of your opponent flying near it, potentially being super bad for them, is a really cool thing to have in your squad. It makes them a very strong zoner. And I look at this and I think, well, getting a stress after the ship has already attacked isn't the worst thing in the world. It's a bit of light control, and I always appreciate a bit of control. And the way I think about it is, look, you're already going to want to get things in your bullseye firing arc anyway. It just means it messes with your opponent's targeting priority. It gives your opponent a bit of control over how they get the stress token. Again, it is light control, but it could really screw with your opponent's strategy. If you take this and you fly super aggressively, this could prove very potent. And look, it only costs 1 point, so that amount of control for 1 point I feel is very strong. It's going to be worth taking in just about all the builds, barring, say, the low pilot skill guys that may not be able to afford to take those extra points. And that's it. That's all we had revealed today. I just want to quickly talk about this guy here. The Cartel Enforcer Entrepreneur. In fact, I'm going to say, I hope this guy is the Cartel Entrepreneur. He's a pilot skill 5 with an EPT, and this is interesting because the Brute costs 22 points and Dalen Oberos costs 25 points, meaning this guy's either going to be 23 or 24 points. 23 feels like the cheap end, and 24 feels like the expensive end, just because of the way it sits between these 2 other pilots. And it's a very interesting points band. Anything that's just below 25 always has the possibility that it might be flown as a 4 of, because obviously you get to the sweet spot of 25 points and you can fly the same build 4 times over. Very neatly fits into 100 points. If it's 23 points, it means it has 2 points to spend on upgrades. If it's 24 points, it only has 1 point to spend on upgrades. We know it can't be 25 points because then it would be pointless. You'd always take Dalen Oberos. That wouldn't make any sense. And the options we have are very cool. We could take a 1 point APT. There's a few cool things. You could take Crack Shot. That'd be pretty effective on this. You could take the Contraband Cybernetics. If it was on 23 points, I think Contraband Cybernetics and Crack Shot as a 4 of could be pretty potent. Yeah, there's some interesting points there. You could take Crack Shot and the Unhinged Astromech if the dial really needs the Unhinged Astromech. And that's just something to look out for. This guy, the lowly pilot skill 3 guy without an EPT at 22 points, you've got 3 points to play with. You could go Salvaged Astromech, Contraband Cybernetics, and something else that costs 1 point. Well, unfortunately, there isn't anything else that costs 1 point. So that's a little bit awkward. You could probably go for Glitterstim if you want to spend some more points, and Salvaged Astromech. That could be pretty potent. I don't know. To me, it's going to be all about this guy with the EPT. I feel like this ship wants to fly well, it wants to joust well, and having the EPT, having something like Veteran Instincts or Crack Shot, or just anything to give it that bit of a boost is going to be pretty significant, and it's going to be worth whatever those points buy in to fly this over the Cartel Brute. That's just my opinion anyway. Anyway, guys, I'm very, very excited for this. Being the Scum player, this is the only ship I'm getting in this wave. And that's not a terrible thing. I think the other factions could use a bit of a catch-up. Plus, it's very nice for my wallet. Only having a small ship, which I'll probably just buy 2 of for this wave, means I can save money and spend it on stuff like Legion and things like that. Anyway, I've rambled on for long enough. Thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe, like our Facebook page, and I will catch you later on.